show for entrepreneurial thinkers. I'm your host, Patrick J. McGinnis, and today we are talking to Colleen Pelly, the founder and CEO of the Linchpin Company. Now, Colleen helps companies find, attract, and train the best talent, and she's worked with top brands like Tesla, Lululemon, and she's also helped startups by creating systems and processes from the ground up. Welcome to FOMO Sapiens, Colleen.
Thank you so much. What an intro.
Where are
Please
you?
follow me around.
Where are you in? Where are you calling us in from today?
Yeah, so I live outside of Vancouver in a place called Coldstream, but near Kelowna in British Columbia.
All right, everybody, we're going international,
Yeah.
north of the border today with a Canadian story. We're going to get into all that. We're going to get into a bunch of really important topics that people who listen to this show care about. Balance is one of them, a big one. But before we do that, I have a question I ask every guest on the show. And Colleen, despite the fact that Canadians are nicer than Americans, I'm not going to let you off the hook. So the question is this.
Tell me.
Tell me something unexpected you learned about yourself that changed everything.
Ooh, that is a great question. What comes to my brain immediately would be I tend to take things extremely personally. So I have this unfortunate or magical, you can look at it as positive or negative, but ability to make everything sort of be about me. And the downside to it is sometimes it can feel like attack. And what I'm working on, or like what is great in transparency, is to realize, hey, it's not about you at all. And it's not black and white like that. And so I think that's probably something that was really surprising when I realized that's what I was doing. So it's like, oh, they're not mad at me, or that didn't go poorly, or whatever it is that's in my head. It's just I was sort of having this filter of making things about me when they aren't.
You know, it's such a we all do this, and I
I
have
know.
when I work with some clients in the coaching world, when it happens that way, like something will happen, and then there's like this. It can be that you do make it all about yourself, and then I always suggest, like, are you being which mindset are you in right now? The judgmental mind or the curious mind? Because the judgmental mind
Yeah.
tells yourself the whole story, writes the whole story, and assumes it's a bad ending. The curious mind is like, okay, maybe that's happening, but let me dig in, let me find out
Right.
more. And so it sounds like you're doing a shift from judgment to curious. Is that
That's
what's
right.
happening?
I'm working on it. Yeah. And I think it's no one cares as much about you as you, is what I'm learning.
I certainly feel that way about myself. But I want to ask you before we move on. You said there
Yeah.
are
Tell me.
positives. There's positives to this. So like, what could be the positive?
Yeah. So I think the shift when I've been able to sort of move into this curious space, as you talked about, is that um, when you realize that you're learning in this way or you're viewing the world in this way, it's kind of allowed me to go back and like revisit different conversations or relationships or, in work client partnerships and realized I might have been looking at that completely wrong, and like, let's reevaluate and go back in and kind of form something stronger. So I think through work, it can all be positive.
Yeah, it's true. And once you recognize that kind of stuff, then you have the key to open the door
It's
to figure out what the
powerful.
heck is going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, what we're going to talk about today, which is a passion of
hmm
yours, which is something as we're in 2025, it's the new year. So we're all trying to just be a little better. At least we're going to try is
Working on it.
we're going to talk about one of the things that I think is so hard for entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial thinkers, which is thinking about just like how to proceed in the world in a way that is way more sustainable. And I want to start with a tried and true that everybody talks about, but few of us get right, which is finding that balance, the
Hmm.
healthy balance between work and life. And I know you've done a lot of thinking about that. So I just want to start there. I'm going to hand the mic to you. And why don't
Great.
you just give us a download, I should say, on how you see that conundrum?
Yes, and such a conundrum. Like that's
Mm.
the perfect way to set it up. So I think this may be an unpopular opinion, but after all of my thinking about this, I don't think work-life balance exists. I don't think that's a thing. I think that's
Ooh,
false.
spicy.
Oh
Tell us
yeah, here we
more.
go.
Oh,
No,
no.
what I'm striving for is what I'm going to call work-life harmony. And so what I mean by this is I think small business owner, mom, daughter, friend, partner, philanthropist, like all the things you're trying to be in the world, it is completely impossible to be 100% of each of those things at all times. And when I finally realized that I can't be 100% this, and this, and that what I'm going to do is pick what needs to be done first. And so harmony or balance for me looks like really understanding how to set priorities for my own life and then putting all of my energy into that. So mom is a role for me that, I'm 3.5 years into it now, which has been amazing. And so that's always my priority. So number one
Mm.
is always going to be, is my family taken care of? Is everyone good? Is everyone safe? Is everyone happy? And then from there, how do I prioritize the other pieces and sort of tackle them one at a time? Because I want to be able to put all of my energy into the thing that I'm trying to focus on. Whereas even like a year ago, maybe I was trying to be everything to everyone at all times. And to be honest, was kind of failing at a lot of them because you can't. And so I would say my strategy has been striving for harmony. And what that looks like for me is the things that need to get done are done. And I'm consistently prioritizing and reshifting what those priorities look like.
All right. Okay. This is good. So you might have heard of a choo-choo train. Right now, we're going to get on the woo-woo train because
Okay.
sometimes on this show, we start talking about stuff that sounds a little woo-woo, but when we dig into it, we realize it's just good, practical stuff. And the reason why I'm going to get on the woo-woo train is that and my listeners know
this.
that I love the woo-woo train, is
Love it.
because I went, recently I was feeling very tapped out and annoyed. And a friend of mine said to me, actually my business partner on the coaching company, Mittel, he was like, man, you seem like you're on edge. And I was like, you know what? Thanks for saying that. I kind of am. So
I
I'm
am.
going to go
Yeah.
sign up for a meditation class at noon.
Amazing.
They do it's crazy. I go to like a normal gym, but they offer a sound bath, which is like
What? That's
fantastic.
amazing.
God bless it. Thank you, Equinox. So I go and I'm in there and I'm thinking, and it's all doing its work. The sound and the meditation. I'm in there. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, this is good stuff. And then I realized something, which is that whether at the cellular level, in terms of like how you eat or how you take care of yourself and sleep and all the things, or whether it's interpersonal and how we deal with other people, or whether it's global and how nations interact with each other,
Right.
we can choose harmony. We can, through our actions, through our mindset, through all the things. And if you choose harmony, guess what happens? Like, it's just way easier. Like, because, like harmony, there's less friction. And so I love that you've just said this because it was an insight that I had. I'd never really thought about that before. And I had that insight a couple months ago and I was like, wow. And so I've been trying to keep that up. So you and I are
Love that.
aligned. But, oftentimes, like, it's not like it just showed up. I mean, it kind of showed up, but I had to be in the space where I was forced to think about it. What
Right.
brought you, what was it that brought you to this place?
Yes. Oh man. And what's funny is there are big moments that sort of lead to it, right? And so probably like as soon as you said that, when you're talking about sort of being forced, the first thing I can think of is it's not even that recent, but during my time before I started a company, I was a part of a layoff at a company. And
You were
what I learned,
the layoff or the layoff or both?
I've been both, but in this particular scenario, I'm talking about being a part of the group that was laid off, being part of a mass layoff. And so um, it feels terrible. Again, of course, I'm taking it personally. I'm making it about who I am as a human being, completely unrelated. But I think what that taught me was in that particular role, I was, for lack of a better word, killing myself. I was working crazy hours. I was doing everything I could. I went to Hawaii with my sister. I worked the whole time. Like it was just no matter what. And then, oh, you're easily replaceable or removed. And that was a huge learning for me in that not that I'm saying not to work hard and not to give everything you have at your role, but really remembering you're not that important. And I mean that in the kindest way. And so that was probably the biggest catalyst was prioritizing everything in my life and not just work and realizing that work is a part of my life and not the whole thing and remembering that you can be exceptional and still have harmony. So that's probably the biggest start. And then the other pieces are just when I'm trying to be everything to everyone and it's not working, I have a lot that I'm feeling like I'm letting a lot of people down. So you're feeling like, I missed this call, or I was late to pick up my kid, or I haven't called my mom, or like just all these different things. And it's like when you can actually sit down and think about what's most important, you get it done and it all just feels easy, which is so nice.
It's just like stop
Yeah.
for a second,
Take a breath.
and evaluate. You're so
Yeah.
right about the job thing. I mean, many people know that I was like on Wall Street, and I saw the when things don't go well, like you're out. And I remember having this insight because I worked really hard too, to the point of like being sick. And then one day,
Yeah.
and then you don't show up to work, and they're like, "Well, why aren't you here?" And you
Where are
realize
you?
everybody's expendable. Even like President of the United States, Joe Biden, expendable. Sorry,
Uh-huh.
Joe. And so there is no security unless you have like the password to the Bitcoin wallet. You're totally expendable. And the quicker you realize that, the quicker you'll be able to say to yourself in those moments where you're totally not serving your own interests, like, "Hey, you know what? These people could run me out of here tomorrow." Including your
Yeah.
investors, for God's sake, if you're an entrepreneur. So, like,
Yep.
let me remember where the priorities are.
Yep. 100%. It's such an interesting thing too because it feels in the moment. If I don't do this right now, everything's going to fall apart when half the time it's really not. None of us, I mean, we're all working very hard, but none of us are doing anything that anyone's going to die if we don't send that email in the next 10 minutes.
100%.
So I like to remind myself of that sometimes too. It's
Yeah.
okay.
And if
You
you're
can send it
afraid,
tomorrow.
if you're afraid of that, try it. Just in a very,
Yeah.
just like try it one time. Like, because I'm very good. When I get email, when I have something to do and then I get 15 emails solving other people's problems, I love to check off those lists. And then an hour goes
Oh,
by
I
and
love
I've
this.
solved everybody else's problem but mine. Just put that email in a little secret place where you can't see it and then come back the
Yep.
next day. And you know what happens? The sun still rose.
It's still there. The day still happened 100%. And that took me a long time to do too, or even just turning my phone off so I can be present with my kids at bedtime and nighttime. And the email's still going to be there after they go to
Yeah.
bed. And I used to feel like I have to do things right now. And so, hey,
I
we're all
love
a
it.
work in progress. We're
Or you
learning.
can close your eyes and delete it, and then it won't be there at all.
Yep.
Which is something I do as well. So let's talk about stress because I mean,
Yeah.
you work in the world of people, right?
Hmm.
In many different ways. You've always been a place with people, and people, if they're not choosing harmony, create stress for us.
Hmm.
And you know, I think stress is kind of like we all know it's incredibly toxic. Like, I would love to share some of your tips about how you manage stress as an entrepreneur, and when you're in the corporate world.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of similarities between like my time in corporate world and also now my time running my own thing. I think
Mm.
it's consistently what stress shows up for me as is I stop doing the things that make me happy. That's how it shows up in my life. So moving my body is really important to me, or like eating well. I feel better when I eat well. I feel better when I move my body. I feel better when I'm making time for fun or the joy in my life with my partner or my friends, that kind of thing. And so how it first shows up is those things all seem to fall to the wayside. So it'll be like, oh my gosh, I haven't gone for a run in a week and a half or whatever it looks like. And so, sorry, I hit my desk.
That's all right.
So one of the
Everybody, it was not
pieces,
an earthquake. It was just Colleen hitting her
yeah,
desk.
just me, my bad. So what I've done, and this is very basic, it's going to feel very simple, but I found it very useful. But I calendar block my day to include all of those pieces so they don't get missed. And so whether it's going for a walk or a workout or a Peloton ride or whatever that looks like, but there's time for movement every day. There's time to go for a walk every day. There's time for my partner and I connect every day. There's time for the kids every day. And then I fit the linchpin work thing sort of in between. And that's really been huge for me. And it's just you have to stick to it. That's the hardest part. So it's very easy to be like, well, Patrick's calling me, so I'm not gonna go on my run. But it's like, no, I can tell him, can we talk at 2 p.m. or whatever that looks like. And so for me, calendar blocking and setting priorities outside of, again, sending that email or hitting that deadline. And I've found business has been better. I feel happier. My clients are happier. We're still getting the same amount of stuff done. I'm just feeling more whole as a human because of it. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, so calendar blocking or time blocking. People
Yeah.
use different terms, but it is. I mean, I did it for meditation for years because I
Hmm.
had trouble with meditation practice. It's like, what is that thing that you really care about, but it's gonna be the first thing you throw in toilet and flush away when you get busy, and therefore you are forced to, when you put something on the calendar, either you're forced to recognize that you are double booking, or you're forced to move that thing. And it is like, it just creates this little moment where you have to reckon with the conflict, and hopefully you
Right.
can solve it.
Yeah. Well, and even like, or on the other side too, like you'll feel resentment because these other things in your life are making you miss things or making you do things. And then it's like, oh, why am I even doing this? I don't feel balanced or I don't feel harmony.
It's
So
so
that's
true.
interesting too.
And if you don't have that, then you're not as effective. It's funny, like recently, I feel bad if anybody listening to the show got canceled on by me. I woke up the other day and I looked at my calendar and I was like, this is a day full of stuff. I don't even know why I'm doing it. because what I really need is to do these other 5 things. So I simply canceled those meetings and moved them for like next year. Or this
Great.
was in December. I moved them to January. And you know what? It was like another one of these things where I had to reclaim. I should have actually booked those things in the calendar or put in like an unstructured, I call it like free thinking time, where I just put like 2 hours as a block for me to just be selfish about the things I need to be doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that calendar for folks like you and me, it seems like you and our stone, we live by our calendars. You have to make sure that everything that matters gets on there, not just the things
Yeah.
that are other people's priorities.
Yeah, right. And I think I heard you say you love a to-do list too, and same. Nothing better than checking something off. So that feels good to get that done every day too. And especially when I was, I started Linchpin sort of on mat leave. And so I just didn't take a mat leave with my first or second kid, but I would just have to write this list every day that like, this has to get done before 5 p.m. These are the things that need to get done. And it's sort of like what's urgent, what's important, what's going to affect the rest of the week, those pieces. And so just like prioritizing has been key too. And like you said, though, it's not just prioritizing those work emails, it's prioritizing me and the other pieces in my life too.
Now you just mentioned maternity leave. And it's interesting because you talked a little bit about your prioritization, which is
Yeah.
family first. But obviously, I mean, whenever I talk to women who run companies and have kids, and there's like there's a thing that the world tells you you're supposed to do, like all the books and things like that you read. Then there's but they're all contradictory. Like one's like lean in, one's like lean out, one's like lean to the left. You never know. And then you have what everybody who's doing it thinks they should tell you. It's like, you need to be no, you need to get a nanny, no, blah, blah, blah. And you have your parents, you have all this noise. And in somewhere you have to figure out what you think is going to be. But as you go through that process, I'm sure you learn things and you end up in a different place than you might have thought. Like how has that been for you? Like, how have you kind of navigated the expectations game versus the reality versus like where you kind of end up, and what's that process been for you?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I think the starting point is no matter what you do, someone's going to think you're doing it wrong. So let's start there. No matter what you do, someone's going to think it's wrong.
You're wrong.
And we'll share that with
Yeah,
you.
we got that out of the way.
So step one, make sure you feel great about who you are and how you're operating in your life. Ignoring
that's
everyone
easy.
else.
Problem solved. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, check. No. So for me, I think when newborns are around, like when they're really, really little, they nap quite a bit. So the very first few months of life is like I was just working while they were napping. And then as they get older, it starts to be like, okay, we have less wake windows that we can work with here and less napping time. And so the way I was able to do that is just when my babies were awake, I was super present and not doing anything to do with work. So my phone was on Do Not Disturb. And then as soon as they went to bed, I just hustled and got a lot done. And I think for me, a huge learning was just how much you can actually accomplish in 2 hours and what that looks like. And I learned how to be unbelievably efficient with my time, and it forced me to create boundaries in my life. Something I've struggled with a lot in my life is people pleasing, and I want everyone to like me and I want to make sure everybody's feeling good. And so I'll say yes to everything. And because I literally didn't have time, it forced me to delegate to my team, which is also good for me. Trust the people who you hire. And then also just say no to things and only really pick things that are super aligned with who I am and how I want Linchpin in my life to move forward. So I don't know, kind of having your hand forced or whatever the term is was good for me. And it turned out really well. And I feel like I've been able to find harmony through the mess.
You mentioned people pleasing, and it made me think.
Man.
We talk about this all. So funny. You know what the book that everybody wrote in 2023 was? Like literally, I had like 17 books sent to me by publishers about imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome, which I think I certainly have lived with, and it sounds like you have too, can lead to the desire to like, okay, so because I'm insecure, I'm going to solve everybody's problems and like put other people first so they'll love me. And then whatever, this pattern.
And if I don't do it, they won't.
Yeah. And talk about that. Cause it sounds like you've wrestled with that and you maybe beat it up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, it's so real for my life. And I'd say it's something I still struggle with.
Is this a Canadian thing, by the way? Do you think Canadians have more of it?
No, I think in work in particular, I think when you think about how it shows up, recruitment in general is a very saturated space. There's a lot of people doing it, right? And so I think I'll see a competitor, I don't know, maybe expanding their offerings or hopping on some trend. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, do I need to be doing that? Am I behind now because I'm not doing that? And it's like, should I hop on the bandwagon and also add this? And I just have to like stop and come back and remember we're not trying to be like everyone else and we're trying to operate in a unique way. So like stay the course, kind of think of your long-term goals. But when you think about imposter syndrome, it's so powerful. I don't know what it looks like for you, but for me, it just shows up as this voice that's like, you shouldn't be in this room. Why are you here? Like, get out of here. This is not going to work. That's how it shows up for me. And so, what I've been trying to do is kind of let facts speak for themselves. So, when I'm doubting myself or I'm feeling like, why is this working? Why is everything going well? I try to remember sort of facts don't lie, but these clients have chosen to work with me, or we have repeat business, or we've closed these roles, or we've made this much money, or whatever that looks like. We're getting great feedback and remembering that that information isn't coming from nothing. And so I kind of try to ground myself in fact, sort of data-based metrics to allow me to remember the voices that are in my head, the story I'm making up about this not working or me not being allowed or I shouldn't be here is like, well, maybe I should, because let's look at
Yeah,
this,
it's a
this,
work
this,
of
and
fiction.
this.
You've written fiction.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And then on top of that, I think it's just celebrating everything. So we're very big at our team for celebrating even the silliest things. Like even just like someone you've been waiting to get an email back from, even if it's a decline. It's like, but they wrote back. We've been waiting. This is great. So we just celebrate
Nice.
all of the things. And I think that's helped us remember we're here. We're supposed to be here. We're in the right room. We're in the right seat. But please, by no means have I discovered the cure to imposter syndrome.
I'm gonna tell you what I do.
I'm in it. Yeah, please.
I got. So my response was to get all these credentials, which is good. I mean, it's a good thing to do. Like, let me, because I
How
don't.
smart I am.
Yeah, right. But if you don't know how to work with that stuff, it doesn't really matter because people don't. You gotta. It's all about knowing how to tell your story,
Right.
in not an obnoxious way, but in an interesting way. So if you're memorable and people understand the arc of what you've done. And I think if
Right.
you and I, so many people who I meet who are super impressive cannot explain to you who they are, and that is a learned skill that all of us can do. But once you figure it out, and kind of how you fit into this world and how you convey that to the rest of the world, there's no reason to feel like an imposter because you have showed people the unique, awesome person that you are, and they can like you or not like you, but that's who you are.
That's right. I love that so much. And it's so true. I don't know. And then even, the other piece that comes to my mind is becoming a parent for me has been this like wild superpower of purpose and intention. And so more than ever before in my life, I'm clear on like everything I'm doing is for them and with them. And so I think that's really been helpful to remind you like you're here, you're showing up for them and you want them to see that you're confident in what you're doing. Um, but also it's good to be vulnerable and tell them what you're struggling with too, I think. But that came to my mind too. There's like this having a purpose or an intention is really helpful to kind of keep you moving forward when you're feeling dark.
Yeah, that's super values. Now,
Yes.
we're gonna have in a second we have the lightning round, but before
Ooh,
we do
okay.
that, I know lightning round is.
I'm sweating. Okay.
You know what? You don't feel like an imposter. You got this one.
Okay, I got this. What am I doing?
You know your
Okay.
story. All right. So before we do that, I do want to talk.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about like a little bit about the routine that you've been able to build
Yes.
in having kids and working all that sort of stuff. But like, as we think about, for folks listening who are trying to sort of have better hygiene in the way they do things in terms of their work lives, like what's a routine that you found very powerful that we can all learn from?
Like a routine in my everyday.
Or your work life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My work life. Yeah. So I think resetting priorities consistently. So that's one thing, like just because something's
Oh,
important on
good.
Monday doesn't mean it's important by Wednesday. So constantly checking in on what's important during the week is probably one of them. And then the second piece would be sort of not taking yourself too seriously. I don't know. I think we get stuck a lot in feeling like all of these things are so important and they're not. But when you're thinking about a schedule or a routine, I'm very creature of habit-y. I'm sure you can tell from my personality, but it's like, I have to make sure I have a good breakfast to get my day going. I have to make sure I exercise. I have to make sure I do this. But on my work front, every day resetting those priorities and reshifting the way things look and how we're going to operate throughout the day because it's different than it was yesterday is really important, especially when you have limited time. And And then the other piece would just be to remember that everything you're doing takes time. So I think something I struggle with sometimes is like that big goal I have. Like there's this huge goal we're trying to accomplish. And if I look at it just as this one big piece, it can feel daunting. And so I just try to remember, like, just take one step forward at a time. So breaking things
Yes.
down into really tangible steps, tiny steps, and just keep moving forward. Take one more step, take one more step. And
Yes.
then it doesn't feel as scary.
Writing a book. It's 61,000 word
Right.
blog posts. Just put them in order. That
Yeah.
kind of mindset. I think that's a
I
really
love
good.
it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So now that we've got all your secrets, are you
Yep.
ready for the lightning round?
Yes.
Okay. Scale of 1 to 10, how stressed out are you?
Ooh, a 3.
That's pretty low. I like that. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Number 1. What's a favorite quote?
Ooh. Okay. Eleanor Roosevelt. Um, no one can make you feel inferior without your permission.
Oh, Eleanor.
So
I
that's a
love
really good
that.
one, even around imposter syndrome or any insecurities, is you're allowing people to make you feel that way. So
Yeah.
that's one I like a lot.
That's a good one. I hadn't heard that, but it's that's a banger. Okay, number 2.
Okay.
Favorite use case for ChatGPT?
Ooh. Oh no. Oh, this is embarrassing. Okay. It's really
Oh.
just how can I make this angry sounding email sound more professional? So it's when I'm like
Oh.
when I'm responding to things in a heated moment, how can I tone down my emotion from it? So, and it honestly, for everyone out there, very useful tool.
Oh, 100%. I love it. Or you know what I do a lot of times is like make this shorter, cut it in
Yeah.
half.
Oh,
Make
please, like I'm so wordy. I'm the same way. Yeah. Can you please
hmm
just help me be efficient here?
Okay, I love that. Number 3, piece of advice you give to your younger self.
Stop caring what everyone thinks about you.
Mm.
It's been such an annoying thing in my life.
So
So
good.
you're awesome. You're amazing. And stop caring if other people don't think that, or maybe they don't and you're making it up that they do. So get
Totally.
out of your head, man.
It's
Get out
not
of your
about
head,
you.
girl. It's
Exactly.
not
All
about
right.
you.
Love it. All right. There's actually different advice, but yeah. Anyway. Number 4, what's your most important memory?
Oh, wow. Oh, this is a
I
great
know deep,
question.
right? I know deep.
Um, okay. What came to my brain was I think I was in like grade 3 and I was at a cross country meet, like a running race, and I was exhausted. And my older brother came and ran beside me for the whole thing and got me to the finish line. And
Oh,
he's
that's
been a
nice.
huge pillar in my life. So that was, thank you, Kyle.
That's
That
so
was very
nice.
nice.
And by the way, for everybody who doesn't know, grade 3 is what we call
Oh,
third
sorry,
grade.
third grade.
If
Sorry,
you haven't
my
figured that
mistake.
out, then you probably this isn't the show for you because we're all smart here. But just making sure. All right, those are fantastic. And in fact, you are the second person in a row who's referred to something in the third grade.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
somebody
weird.
told a story in
Interesting.
an earlier taping today, and what I like about that is, when I created that question, it was actually the idea was Charles Duhigg, who's the author, the New York Times bestseller. He's the one who
Yeah.
gave me that question, and I remember thinking it's just going to be marriages and babies. Like we'll get the same thing. It has been such a wild mix of things, and I think it's because
Yeah.
your brain. It's funny how in your little cerebral cortex, there's some
It's like,
little memory
poof.
stuck there, and it just pops out.
Yeah. Can you tell me yours?
Oh my God. I've been asked this on the show before and I'm trying to remember. I remember actually the one that just popped in. It's funny. I remembered my first memory, which is not my most important. It's just my
Okay. Well,
first
yeah.
memory
And
is
also
when I
amazing.
slid in my diapers across the floor in our living room and then in front of guests and my parents were like, you shouldn't be doing that. And I cried. The one I remember is when I was in the 5th grade, I had pretty bad Tourette's syndrome,
Okay.
and so I had a lot of tics and shook my head and all that sort of stuff. And I was chosen at the school band concert to give the teacher some flowers and give a little speech. And I remember giving the little speech, but out of the corner of my eyes, I could see my parents, and they had a combined look of pride and also kind of just like pathos of being like, oh my God, he's like poor kid, And I remember
Oh,
being like, wow, they're proud of me, but also this kind of sucks.
oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so
But
keeping it
you
real.
could take that to motivate you.
Listen, it's resilience. If I have any resilience, it's thanks to Tourette's. So
Yeah,
thanks
there you go. That's
Tourette's.
amazing. There you go.
You
Resilience is a
got
very, very amazing like attribute to have, and something I hope that I can have in my life and give to my children. So I'd say that's a priority.
to resilience.
I love it.
All right. So if you want to find out more about Colleen, you can find her company at the Linchpin Co. on Instagram, thelinchpinco.com on the internet. They're on LinkedIn. They're everywhere. Colleen Pelly, founder and CEO of the Linchpin Company. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. That was so fun.
Boom.